Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham, Rakha Kodesh. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of Zephaniah, the 3rd chapter. And, just continuing from the 2nd chapter, as you can see here in the subheading, right? Woe to Jerusalem and to the nations. And this is, it's still along the lines, right, of the same high level message that the Lord has, various prophets spoke about concerning Israel, right? Zechariah, Haggai, all of them, Ezekiel, in which there's the message about the judgment the Lord is going to bring upon Israel for their wickedness, and the judgment the Lord is going to bring upon these other nations, and then how at the end the Lord is going to deliver us, turn back our captivity, and glorify and beautify us again. So this is Zephaniah chapter 3 verse 1. Woe to her that is filthy and polluted, to the oppressing city. Okay, and when you deal with this contextually, right, this is dealing with the nation of Israel. Okay, as it mentions, filthy and polluted because of the sins that Israel was committing, okay, that had separated them really from the Heavenly Father, okay, but also corrupted, all right, the nation of Israel through the heavy introduction of idolatry, okay, which led to more people leaving the ways of Yahweh Ba'asham Yahushai, i.e. more violence, and sins and iniquity being committed. So hence it's being referred to as the filthy and polluted. And when you go into the word oppressing, right, because eventually that's what it leads to, right? When there's no righteous judgment, it leads to people being oppressed and mistreated, right? So you have the word here, yana. It says to oppress, treat violently, right? Vex, do wrong, maltreat. And once again, this is the condition that Israel was in. And really, in the majority of our history, this has been the condition of the nation of Israel. Hence, it says, woe to her, right? Woe meaning, destruction, okay, or something that's not good. Let's actually see what the word is here in the Hebrew. What's that? Hawaya. Here it just says alas, ha, ho, oh, woe. All right, so going back to Zephaniah 3. Now there are times when we use this verse to describe America, but it's always important to qualify and give the correct context of it, right, as to who is actually applying to in context. Verse 2, she obeyed not the voice of who? The voice of Yahweh Bahasham Yahushai by way of his prophets, right? Because that's how the Lord speaks. He sends his prophets with his message, and to speak onto the people concerning either something they're doing that the Lord doesn't like, or something the Lord's about to do. But as it says, she obeyed not the voice, and the she here is referring to the nation of Israel. So they disobeyed the voice of the Lord. She received not correction. So the Lord sent the prophets to correct them, to warn them that they should stop in the wickedness that they're doing. But as it says, she received not correction, right? So they killed the prophets, they disregarded the words, they misused them, and they basically ignored the correction that was coming from the Lord, as they even do till this day. She trusted not in the Lord Yahweh. She drew not near to her God. So this is also another indicator that the first verse is referring to the nation of Israel, because the subject here hasn't changed compared to the her in the first verse, right? And we know that the God of the Most High, Yahweh is the God of Israel. Okay, Amos 3:1 tells you that. So there's more context, right? Verse 3, her princes within her are roaring lions. Her judges are evening wolves. So the princes, the judges, these are like the leaders, right? These are the ones that were in positions of authority and they were put in those positions that they may judge righteously, that they may preserve and maintain order according to the ways and the commandments of the Lord. But as it says here, they are roaring lions, right? Looking, basically, they really just go around seeking, whom they can prey on, whether it's by way of, bribes or whatever form of corruption they were under. Her judges are evening wolves. Now, something about wolves is they are, I forget the exact term. See if I can bring it back here again. I think it's crepuscular or something like that. Let's see, if that's the word. Killer. Animals. Yeah, or crepuscular, right? Crepuscular. So if you look up here, are wolves. Yep, crepuscular. It'll tell you yes. And what it means is, like it says here, they're most active during twilight, right? So during dawn and dusk. And it's the same with like cats, for example. Cats are crepuscular, animals as well. So not that they're necessarily nocturnal, but around dusk and dawn, is when they're most active. So here, speaking on the likening these judges onto evening wolves, right? That basically come out around this time, and they hunt. That's what wolves do. So the analogy here is likening the demeanor or the behavior of these judges and princes to these highly predatory animals that hunt prey. And so here the prey would be the people, where instead of the judges and the princes judging righteously, they are actually basically taking advantage of the people, misleading them, right? It says here, they gnaw not the bones till the morrow. And when you go into the word gnaw, pretty much meaning like they don't leave anything, right? Till the morrow. They don't spare, right? They don't spare. Now, if you look at this in, say, for example, NKJV is one example. Her princes in her midst are roaring lions. Her judges are evening wolves that leave not a bone till morning, right? Kind of like hyenas, right? When they get their hands on the prey, they eat everything. Okay, and that's pretty much how it's describing the leaders of Israel in this verse. They take full, complete advantage. Verse 4, her prophets are light and treacherous persons, right? Light basically meaning insolent, reckless, right? They're not truly grounded and sent by the Lord. And treacherous persons, right? So they're guilty of deceit, of misuse. They'll say, they'll use the appearance of being, holy, because they know people will listen to them, and they would use that to take advantage of people and to gain personal gain, like you see even happening today. All right. So if you want an example, look around with these false leaders today that use that outward appearance to deceive people and amass wealth, okay, by misleading people. Anyway, as it says here, they are treacherous persons. Her priests have polluted the sanctuary being the temple. And how so? By going astray, right? By following the ways of these other nations, going under their influence, right? Perverting the judgment of the Lord, and hence by not following the ordinances of the Lord, you pollute the sanctuary. The Lord's rituals are very specific, and when the priests start to deviate from that and they start to go in other ways, they pollute the sanctuary, right? As it says, they have done violence to the law, so they've basically violated the law. When the law says do A and then you do A plus B plus C, or you don't do A, you're violating that law. So all that's being said here is a highlighting of the disobedience, the treachery, the wickedness that's taking place in Israel, the nation of Israel, that is. Okay. Verse 5, the just Lord is in the midst thereof. He will not do iniquity. So we know, right? Even Moses, he said this when he in the book of Deuteronomy, pretty much like his last exhortation to the people before they went and crossed over into the west of Jordan. Basically, he was telling them, right, that the Lord will select a place where he would put his name, and that's where you're going to build the temple and so on and so forth. So as it says, the just Lord is in the midst thereof, but he will not do iniquity. So the Lord is beholding these things that are taking place. He's beholding the priests committing these wicked, violating the laws, the leaders misleading the people, taking advantage of them, the majority of people going astray, and nobody seeking the Lord, right? Mostly. They're all going every which way, doing whatever they deem to be right in their own eyes. But the Lord, as it says, is just, and he will not do iniquity. Hence, every morning doth he bring his judgment to light. So, and that's something the Lord did then, but even up till today, as the scriptures tell us, the Lord changes not. Okay, so consistently the Lord brings that judgment, and as it says, he doesn't do iniquity, right? Because what is that? Job 4:7. Whoever perish being innocent, right? Every form of judgment the Lord brings is really righteous, and it's according to the deeds, okay, of the individual. It says he faileth not, but the unjust knoweth no shame. See, and why is that? Because they continue to do these wicked things. And a precept real quick, which sort of, a thought that you can imagine them having Ecclesiastes 8:11, right? It says, because sentence against an evil work is not executed speedily, therefore the heart, meaning when you go into the word heart, it means their mind, their imaginations, their thoughts, right? So the heart of the sons of men is fully set in them to do what? To do evil. That's why, as it says here, they know no shame, right? The unjust knoweth no shame. Hence they continue to compound wickedness and sins and iniquity, one on top of another, on top of another, on top of another, right? And though the Lord's judgment comes forth, as he says, every morning, it doesn't mean necessarily that somebody might be in the midst of committing adultery and right then and there they get struck by lightning. And it is because of that people, as the unjust in particular, continue to do these things, because they see it as, well, I did it last week, nothing happened, I can do it again this week. Verse 6, I have cut off the nations, their towers are desolate. I have made their streets waste, that none passeth by. Their cities are destroyed, so that there is no man, that there is none inhabitant. I said, surely thou wilt fear me, thou wilt receive instruction. So their dwelling should not be cut off, howsoever I punished them. But they rose early and corrupted all their doings. So what the Lord is saying here in verse 6 and 7 is, I did all this, right? I took out these nations, your adversaries. I reproved kings, I brought down many nations, thinking that upon seeing these things, you would fear me, right? Being that the nation of Israel would fear the Lord upon seeing these things, right? And obey him and follow his instruction. But as it says here, they rose early and corrupted all their doings. So regardless of that, guess what? They still turned around and followed here it is. You witnessed the Lord destroy a nation, right? And the nation's gods are not able to deliver them. And the Lord destroys that nation. You witness that. And then later on, you turn around and go and serve the gods of that nation. Same gods who couldn't defend them against your God. It's crazy. Now, a precept for this real quick is in, let's get that in the book of 2nd Ezra. Because the Lord pretty much says the same thing to Ezra in 2nd Ezra, the 1st chapter. And the 8th, let's see actually, verse 10, start at verse 9. How long shall I forbear them, into whom I have done so much good? Probably should be onto. And this is the Lord speaking unto Ezra, almost like venting here. Verse 10, many kings have I destroyed for their sakes. Pharaoh with his servants, and all his power have I smitten down. All the nations have I destroyed before them, and in the east I have scattered the people of 2 provinces, even of Tyrus and Sidon, and have slain all their enemies. See? So going back to Zephaniah 3, so as the Lord is saying, yeah, I cut off the nations, I made their towers desolate, made their streets waste, just brought it all down. Right? What are some examples at this time you can imagine what the Lord did to Egypt, what the Lord did to Jericho, right? The land of Canaan. All in the sight of Israel, right? That they would fear the Lord. But if you take even the example of Egypt, just as we got out of Egypt and Israel witnessed the deliverance of the Lord, they turned around and started disobeying him. The Lord told Moses, look, tell these people that one example is when the Lord instructed Moses to tell the children of Israel that he would let it rain manna, right, from heaven, but they should only gather what is sufficient for the day, and on the Sabbath gather double for the next day. And just as quickly as he told them, people already gathering more. The Lord made it come down. Jake, you got enough for today, but they want to get extra for tomorrow. But the Lord told you, don't worry about that. And immediately the Lord was like, yo, what the what's wrong with these people, man? Are they deaf? Did they not just see what I just did for them? And just a simple instruction like this, they can't even follow? Oh man, this is gonna be a long journey. If they can't even follow this instruction here now, and this is like pretty much like day one, how the hell, Anyway, reading verse 7 again, I said, surely thou wilt fear me, thou wilt receive instruction, so their dwelling should not be cut off, right? Because if we continue to fear the Lord and receive his instructions, pursuant to Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter, the first 15 verses, the blessings, right? We wouldn't be cut off from our dwelling. We wouldn't be, attacked by other nations, which the Lord would send, and we wouldn't be removed from the land, which ended up happening. Howsoever I punished them, but they rose up early and corrupted all their doings. See, so regardless of how the Lord brought judgment upon us, Israel still got up and corrupted themselves by following the ways of these idols, which is likened onto committing spiritual adultery against the Lord. Verse 8, therefore wait ye upon me, saith the Lord Yahweh, until the day that I rise up to the prey. For my determination is to gather the nations, that I may assemble the kingdoms, to pour upon them mine indignation, even all my fierce anger. For all the earth shall be devoured with the fire of my jealousy. So we know that this verse is going into, in this time, right? The gathering of the nations and the fire. This is going to be during the time that we are in now, prophecy, where what the Lord is doing, right? Let's read this again. Therefore wait ye upon me, saith the Lord, until the day that I rise up to the prey. So who are the prey here? The prey here are these other nations. Okay, and the Lord, how is he going to rise up to the prey? By what he has determined to do, right? For my determination, so the Lord's plans are to gather the nations. Where? Today it's called the Middle East, but in the scriptures is referred to as the Valley of Jehoshaphat, which is in the Hebrew Yahweh Shaphat. Yahweh being the name of the Heavenly Father, Shaphat meaning judgment, right? So the place of the Lord's judgment. And that's why the Lords have intention over there in the East now to draw in these nations there for war, right? So as he says, my determination is to gather the nations over there in that region, that I may assemble the kingdoms, bring them together. For what? For war. To pour upon them mine indignation. And that's the Lord's anger. So through his anger, he is going to set up this, have these nations go at each other in this war and pretty much start destroying each other with their weapons. And then in the process of that, he is going to send back the heavenly host, right? Yahushua and the rest of the angels. And they're also going to come in there and bring some more destruction and fire from the so-called UFOs, right? The chariots. Even all my fierce anger, for all the earth shall be devoured with the fire of my jealousy. And this fire is going to be, from the destruction, right? Both nuclear and I guess you could call it divine, right, coming from the heavens, i.e. primarily the chariots. Now, when it says for all the earth shall be devoured, it doesn't mean the whole entire planet. Okay, the word earth in the Hebrew is aratiza. Right, let's pull that up, which means land. Right. So aratiza. And as you can see, it says land, earth, earth. Now here they have definition 1 here as whole earth as opposed to a part. And then here they have land, country, territory, right? District, region, tribal territory, piece of ground. Now, the reason they have these different use cases here is because throughout the scriptures you have, times when the Lord is referring to the planet, but the word there in the Hebrew might be aratiza, and then times when he's referring to just a particular part of the planet, but the word there is still aratiza. So here you see the various definitions by use case, and that way when you see the word aratiza, you know that depending on the context, this could be applicable to the whole earth. It could be applicable to just a particular region or territory, all right, or it could just be particular to or applicable to just like the actual ground or the surface here, as it's saying. Okay, so back to Zephaniah 3 and 8. So why is the Lord saying, therefore wait ye upon me, right? From the verses we read from the first verse down to the 7th verse, the Lord has been highlighting by mouth of Zephaniah the iniquity, the wickedness that Israel has been doing, regardless of what the Lord did, bringing judgment day by day, destroying these other nations on our behalf. Israel is still in their corrupt ways. So he says, therefore, you just wait until the day, right, where I bring this to come to pass. Because this, in verse 8, this prophecy is going to be what ends this age. And immediately following this prophecy is going to be like what we're reading here in the 9th verse on down. Immediately following this prophecy is going to be when the Lord returns and delivers, the elect of the nation of Israel. And from that point on, he's going to make us perfect. And we're not going to sin anymore. We're not going to transgress anymore. We're not going to be guilty of verses Zephaniah 3 and 1 to 7 anymore. So that's why he says, therefore wait upon me, because once I bring this 8th verse to come to pass, no more will we have to deal with this hard-headed nation, them transgression, them not listening, because I'm going to fix all that. Okay, but first I gotta fulfill this prophecy here. Verse 9, for then, right, will I turn to the people a pure language, which the pure language is the Lashon Kodash, which in the Hebrew translates to holy tongue. And that's Hebrew, right? The ancient Hebrew. That they may all call upon the name of the Lord, Yahweh, to serve him with one consent. Okay, and this is going to be in unison and in righteousness. But we know that even at this point, this is going to be ultimately, right, post the destruction of World War III, because that's when the Lord is going to send Yahushua back, and after that war is done, righteousness is going to be instilled in the earth again, and everybody, starting with Israel on to even these other nations, are going to be, are going to reverence and fear the Lord and follow the ways of Yahweh Ba'asham Yahushua. Verse 10, it says, from beyond the rivers of Ethiopia, O Ethiopia, my suppliants, even the daughter of my dispersed shall bring mine offering. And when you read this, even when you go into the word suppliants, I believe it goes into like worshipers or those that serve the Lord. And in essence, is going into like the gathering, right, of the Israelites dispersed in different parts, right? And I think it's actually a bit clearer if we read this in another translation. For example, even the NKJV, right? From beyond the rivers of Ethiopia, my worshipers, the daughter of my dispersed ones, shall bring my offering. Right? NLT, my scattered people who live beyond the rivers of Ethiopia will come to present their offerings. See, so it's not talking about actual heathens, because heathens are not the Lord's people. Okay, the heathens are heathens. All right, but you have, Ethiopia here is just one example, right? The rivers of Ethiopia is just one example, but you have Israelites that are scattered all throughout the earth that are going to come and be gathered and brought back to serve the Lord with one consent. Verse 11, in that day shall thou not be ashamed. Make sure that's the right verse. Yep. In that day shalt thou not be ashamed for all thy doings, wherein thou hast transgressed against me. Why? Because in that day the Lord is going to change us and make us perfect. And he's going to erase and cleanse us of all those sins that we had committed. Okay. Hence, we're going to be made, we're going to be renewed. And no longer are we going to have to be ashamed for all the things that we did, because the Lord is going to wipe all of that away. For then I will take away out of the midst of thee them that rejoice in thy pride. And those that rejoice in thy pride is another word for the rebels, right? The bad apples amongst the nation. Yeah, the wicked of our people. So the Lord says he's going to take them out of the midst of thee, out of the midst of us. And well, at least we'll read it in the next verse, right? But it says, and how is he going to do that? By destroying them. And thou shalt no more be haughty because of my holy mountain, right? Haughty going into like proud. And proud in what? Proud in wickedness. Because right now in the nation, our nation is now made up of the Israel of God, right? The elect, those that are truly seeking the Heavenly Father to serve him and to please him. And then you have the rest, which are the wicked of our people that don't care at all and are proud in their wicked ways. So the Lord is going to remove them, as it says, from the midst of thee, and thou shalt be no more haughty, right? Because once they're gone, all you're going to be left with are the remnant, right? The holy, the meek, the lowly. Because of my holy mountain, and that holy mountain is going to be the government the Lord is going to set up, right? The government of Israel that's going to start with, obviously Yahushai and the rest of the 144,000 on down to the rest of the nation. And within that government, there's going to be no place for, wickedness. Hence, they're going to be removed or purged out. Verse 12, I will also leave in the midst of thee an afflicted and poor people. See? So once the Lord takes out them that rejoice in thy pride, what those that are going to be left are the afflicted and poor people, which represent the elect, right? The meek, the lowly, the righteous of the nation. It says, and they shall trust in the name of the Lord Yahweh. The remnant, there you go again, of Israel shall not do iniquity, nor speak lies, neither shall a deceitful tongue be found in their mouth, for they shall feed and lie down, and none shall make them afraid. Right? Because, ultimately starting now, through the sacrifice of Yahushua, through his blood, though we're not perfect right now, right? We still, in this flesh, we still go off. Lord willing, we be of that remnant, of that elect. But the Lord does not impute that upon us, because we are covered by the blood of Yahushua. But ultimately, in this time, right, in the time of this prophecy being fulfilled, when the Lord comes back and cleanses up, the elect and changes the elect and makes them perfect, we're no longer going to be committing iniquity, right? Or speaking lies or having a deceitful tongue in our mouth, because we're going to be made perfect. And as it says, they shall feed and lie down, and none shall make them afraid. And that's going to be in the kingdom, right? Where we are going to have, ultimate, true, eternal rest, and not to be afraid, not to look over your shoulder, not to have to worry about, being oppressed or any of that. Verse 14, sing, O daughter of Zion, shout, O Israel, be glad and rejoice with all thine heart, O daughter of Jerusalem. Why? Because now the days of our captivity are going to be removed, we're going to be taken away, and we're going to be, put in a joyful state. Verse 15, the Lord Yahweh hath taken away thy judgments. See, he hath cast out thine enemy, right? And thy judgments, meaning the primarily, one example are the curses, right? Which was a judgment the Lord put upon us for disobedience, along with, death and all these other things that we have to go through. But this is why in verse 14, it's saying, sing and rejoice, because at this point, right, in the prophecy, the Lord is going to take away those judgments that he put upon us, that kept us in this low state, in this destitute state. as it says, he hath cast out thine enemy, right? So starting with Esau, but all these nations that had us under their foot, that had us in this low condition, that were considered our enemies, the Lord has cast them out, right? By destroying them and then subjecting those that remain under us. The king of Israel, even the Lord, and you notice oftentimes when they use this, even what's coming after is related to the first, right? So in other words, it's saying here, the Lord is the king of Israel here, right? So the king of Israel, even the Lord, is in the midst of thee. Thou shalt not see evil anymore, right? So in the kingdom, we're going to be perfect, right? We're going to have eternal joy and happiness. When you read the book of Revelation, the 21st chapter, it talks about in the first few verses how there's going to be no more tears, no more death, no more sorrow. Those are going to be considered the former things, and they're going to pass away. Okay. And those things will be considered evil, right? But we're not going to have to see that anymore. Verse 16, and why is the Lord going to be able to dwell in the midst of us? Because we're going to be made perfect. We're going to be made clean. In that day it shall be said unto Jerusalem, fear thou not, and to Zion, let not thine hands be slack. Right. So don't fear, don't hesitate, don't be weak, right? Because you have nothing to fear. Verse 17, the Lord Yahweh thy God in the midst of thee is mighty. He will save. He will rejoice over thee with joy. And the scriptures say, right, it is the Father's good pleasure to give us the kingdom. And the Lord is going to be able to do this because now he's no longer going to have that anger or that separation from us because of our iniquities and sins. Like when you have a child, right, an offspring, and they do something bad, or they're constantly doing something bad or being hard-headed, you love them, but you're mad, you're upset and hurt because someone that you love so deeply is making you so upset, right? And then you have to punish them and whatnot. But when they actually repent from that, right, and they start listening and they start making an effort to change, and they actually start improving and doing well, then you're filled with that joy to proudly call them your son or your daughter, right? And to reward them, right? You're even eager to buy them that new PS4 that they wanted, right? Or that new PS5 that they wanted, because they're now, doing things that you can look at and be proud of, that you can be happy with, right? It says here, so similarly, in this sense, the Lord is going to rejoice over us with joy, right? As it says, he will rest in his love. He will joy over thee with singing. Instead of being angry, right, and long suffering and getting ready to bring wrath upon us, all that is going to pass. We're going to be made perfect, and the Lord is finally going to be able to enjoy us as his people, and us enjoy him as our God. Verse 18, I will gather them that are sorrowful for the solemn assembly, who are of thee, right, Israelites, and here the elect, to whom the reproach of it was a burden, right? So I will gather them that are sorrowful for the solemn assembly, meaning when you read this in like other translations, they make it a bit clearer, right? But those that were sorrowful at, what's a good word here? Like us not being able to keep these holy days, us losing our heritage, us losing our customs, right? Because that's what led to that reproach. Okay, and that was a burden onto us, i.e. the elect. They are the ones who the Lord is going to gather. Those that were sorrowful seeing the destruction that came upon our people, right? Those that were sorrowful being in the state where we're now being reproached, right? Where it felt burdensome to them, who cried out for all the sins and abominations that are being done. They are the ones who the Lord is going to gather. Verse 19, behold, at that time I will undo all that afflict thee, and I will save her that halteth. The word halteth meaning like one that is lame or limp. In other words, this is synonymous with the sorrowful. It's synonymous with the meek. It's synonymous with the afflicted, right? The afflicted and poor people, and that represents the elect. It says, and gather her that was driven out, right? Which is Israel, but starting with the elect of Israel. And where were we driven out of? We were driven out of our land, right? Made pilgrims upon the earth. And I will get them praise and fame in every land where they have been put to shame. So in all the world, in all the different places, right? Even here, because it's going to start here when they see the Lord, the things the Lord does on behalf of his people. But in everywhere, right, where we've been looked at as, in a negative connotation, the Lord is going to reverse that, right, and turn that into praise and fame. So as we're in the minds of the people today, when they hear about Israelites, when I say Israelites, I don't mean the modern understanding of Israelites, like black Hebrew Israelites, but I mean the actual nationality of the people, right? When they hear about the so-called Negroes or Latinos or Native Americans, majority of the stigma is negative, right? People that fill up the prisons, gang members, thugs, single mother homes, right? Getting pregnant at a young age, not being able to take care of your kids, being on welfare, these kinds of things are the shame that is associated with our people all over. But the Lord is saying in all these different areas, he's going to reverse that and change that into praise, to where people are going to be singing our praise wherever, right? All around. And this is going to happen when the Lord, takes away those curses. He, subdues those nations that subjected us, and ultimately cleanses us and makes us a holy nation again. Verse 20, at that time, I will bring you again, even in the time that I gather you, right? So when the Lord gathers us, starting with the word, but physically it's going to be when he sends Yahushua back and changes us and makes us perfect, right? For I will make you a name and a praise among all people of the earth. So now when people hear about Israel, they're not gonna call us blacks or Latinos. They're not gonna be looking at things like Trayvon Martin, George Floyd, and all these crazy. No, they're not gonna be looking at that. When they hear about Israel, they're gonna think about the priests, right? The gods, the holy ones, the nation that is desired. Okay, and there, as it says here, the Lord is gonna make us a name and a praise among all people of the earth, when I turn back your captivity before your eyes, saith the Lord. So that's what we're seeing now, but it's going to intensify to where we're going to witness, literally the Lord taking us from a state of captivity, from a destroyed state, and raising us up, to the highest point that any nation can be. Because that is the position he created the nation of Israel to be. And we're going to see all of that, and how the Lord, flips our condition, as to where you walk past and people clench their purse, or they look at you a certain kind of way, thinking, what good can come from this guy? Where you do something, some accomplishment, and people are extra surprised because of, the nation of people that you come from, that they didn't expect somebody like you to be able to read so eloquently, right? Or to be able to be so knowledgeable on a certain subject, or to be able to be good at something. All of that is going to be changed, and we're going to witness that. Okay, and that brings us to the end of the book of Zephaniah. And so, Lord willing, this is edifying to the elect. Like I mentioned in the first chapter, the time and the prophecy of Zephaniah, where at least when his ministry, this is taking place prior to the siege of Jerusalem. So a lot of the different chapters that we've already gone into, like the book of Daniel, Ezekiel, and so on, some of them are right around the time of the siege, some of them are a little after, but this would be a little before that time, right, during the reign of King Josiah. So Lord willing, this was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham, Recha, Kodash, and until next time, Shalom.